Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, and welcome to another episode of Fanalysis, Avatar: The Last Airbender. I'm Retty4, this is GreyJellow91.
Hello.
And this is Antoine Bandelay.
Be water, my friends.
Matt, why don't you summate this extremely complex and intricate episode for us?
Yeah, so this is book 2, episode 4, The Swamp, and all kidding aside, the summary is that they go to a swamp. I don't have a lot for you guys, I'm sorry. So let's get into it.
We open up with Iroh and Zuko, which is the kind of first time we've had a scene open the episode and not continue on with its own side story. This doesn't come up again until the final scene of the episode. It's kind of bookends at either end, but we don't get a continued B plot for it.
As I was watching the episode, I thought it was going to finish off and just never address them again. I was going, that's weird. That's bizarre. They had that follow-up scene, that book ending, like you said.
It's a really nice opening though, because it's another example of that separate setting they do, where they'll just they'll show you a single panning shot of a nice area that's not unique, but it's rare in the show, at least up to this point. Kind of giving you a little snapshot of the Earth Kingdom and how they progressed further into it and the different lifestyle. Just, the irrigation of the fields. It's just a gorgeous little snapshot of a setting. Really enjoyable.
I sometimes will just randomly sing that stupid song. It's a long, long way to Boston. But I forgot which episode it was associated with. But I'll just say that when I'm bored, under my breath or whatever, and people go, "What are you talking about?" Oh, sorry, it's Avatar. But I remember that song. I just forgot the context of it.
Yeah, because that's basically the entire scene. They're just begging for money so they can get some food. Iroh is taking it on his chin, and Zuko, as you would expect, isn't.
He's royalty. Yeah,
they should be giving us this stuff, anything we want.
Well, in a bit, it kind of continues with Iroh kind of being a little. I mean, it's not as bad here as it was in book 1, but him being a womanizer in the way in which he speaks to or speaks of women. You know what I mean?
That was a more pleasant.
Right.
This one's okay. It's more playful, but it's somewhat consistent if you really want to do a deep dive into Iroh's fully formed personality.
It follows with what men are like. I'm going to say are like and not even were like, okay? So if that offends you, person, I'm sorry. But especially if you're blue collar and your job is boring and you sing songs to pass the time or whatever, what are you going to sing about? You know what I mean? It's even the Mulan song.
I was going to sing Mulan, yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to steal your thunder. But yeah, that's kind of where my head went. Which is not. It's not really objectifying. It's more well, I mean, I guess it is, but it's tinged with positivity. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's what.
Because I didn't take much issue with him in book 1. With the it's just that lady was much younger than him, but even so, it's
no, it was funny.
He likes to get his dick wet too, man.
Yeah, it was funny because she was paralyzed and he was like, "I'm just gonna stay here." And, she can't do anything about it. And I'm surprised she didn't actually. There were no repercussions from that. She should have hunted him down.
But yeah, it's one of those playful, charming things that both sexes do to one another. On either side, that song it's normal. As well as the charming, comment about the woman's smile when she gives him a coin. It's just old man being charming.
That's a thing. As anybody who's ever worked in retail could tell you, and just observed the way people are, that's how people are. They say stuff like that.
Yeah, there's no malice behind it, and that's the important thing. But yeah, Zuko isn't a fan.
Dude is super. Well, yeah, he's not a fan, and also that dude was he was a jerk.
Oh yeah,
yes, he
was.
What
a nice man.
Also, that's not how you want to. You don't want to knock your swords against stone. That's the quickest way to dull it.
Yeah, that was just him being ridiculous. But I think it was that kind of dance, boy, dance,
dance.
I think it was that kind of thing. Yeah,
crazy. But it's Iroh's reaction to it. It's what a nice man. Are you kidding me? I don't care if he gave you a gold coin. That's ridiculous.
It's hard to tell when Iroh's being whimsical and just making light, or if he actually doesn't see what an asshole that guy was.
He objectively had to have been being sarcastic there, but it doesn't read like that in that moment. The way he says it, the expression, it's like it's a what? Zuko's just going, raising an eyebrow. But yeah, that's that scene. We don't see them again to the end of the episode, as we said. So it's a bit interesting as an episode for that one.
I'll say this, even as someone who's seen this series before, I didn't realize that really the point of that is for Zuko to eventually get those swords.
Yeah,
my mind didn't go there. I was like, okay, this guy sucks, and he was making Iroh dance with his swords. So it was a nice little seed dropped for where that actually goes at the end of the episode. I'll say that point, or I'll say that for it.
Yeah. But we get the gang arriving at the swamp. They're just kind of flying over it on Appa, and Aang is unwittingly drawn towards the base and attempts to land. I like the line from Sokka. It's just a little humorous quip, but the way he says, "I don't see any land there to land on." I found the run on and the delivery for that really amusing. The entire episode was quite a funny one for me, actually.
Yeah, Sokka's in his fortune teller mode in this episode. Sure.
Oh yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah, he's very sarcastic and sort of quippy. He has like lots of little quips like that. My favorite one actually comes up later where he goes, "You better throw in an extra yip." Like I like
yes,
that.
yeah.
That was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, just the mini in between lines is what got me with this one, and the reactions to them.
Why is he so dismissive of all this stuff when like his girlfriend is the moon and he's been seeing all this spirit stuff? So it's like, I mean, I get being practical and such, but at the same time, it's like he's just reset, just so he can have this.
I think he's just inclined not to see it as the default. It exists. Yes, of course it exists. He's aware of that, but he's not going to see it in everything. He will wait till it's confirmed before he just starts going straight for the supernatural.
Like, I'm gonna wait until my girlfriend is actually the moon, and then
he will never actually accept these things until he has to. Like that's his perspective
for him. Yeah. Which works, it fits his shtick. It's not like there are some times when he maybe should be a bit more flexible with his thinking, but it's not all the time. It's not like he's always wrong about this, even though in this instance, of course, he is.
In the writers' room, in the writers' room, I would expect that they just want to have banter, like while this is going on. So they just make him. Well, he's the skeptic, right? So he'll just doubt all this. But it is like, Aang's the Avatar. He's got like Avatar premonitions going on. Like maybe just take a back seat on this one, Sokka. Especially because this isn't like your home turf. You have no idea what this place is.
And Aang's line of, "Well, because you all feel so strong about this, bye swamp," just immediately flies straight off. Like throws it aside. I like that. The wonders of democracy. But yeah, the tornado is a result of that. This swamp. Well, we don't know at this point, but the swamp is supposedly the thing that summons that to bring them down, and they knock each of the member of the gang off of Appa and Momo and separate the two, so they do no longer have their vehicles / pets / friends available to them.
Yeah.
The whole plot. We can talk about the whole plot of Appa and Momo. It's them being chased for food, which is terrifying in its own way. Because I really was like sitting there thinking about it. I'm like, wow, what if they really just got caught and like eaten and just being a wild animal that's chased down like that, like Appa's like a buffalo in this situation, just being chased down by these people. So I thought that was like actually kind of terrifying.
Their whole little side thing here is them both working together and quote unquote bonding beyond what they already have until they do run into the swamp people and get chased. There's not much to talk about there. That's literally it summed up in a nutshell.
Yeah, I've never remembered that this happened actually. I didn't actually. I knew that they went to the swamp. In my mind, never remembered where Momo and Appa were in all this. So yeah,
I remember them getting separated. I didn't quite remember how many moments were devoted to them, because there were quite a few kind of split out throughout the episode, which is not much point going to. There was one I would like to mention when they're sitting at night and Appa roars to silence the rest of the roars. I really like that.
That was funny.
There was something just cool about that moment, and charming.
He's the king of the forest.
Yeah, he is the alpha.
Stupid song. Yeah, but
so wait, what is it that is giving them these visions? Like, what is the spirit working that's going on? Is it that bird thing?
It's swamp gas, clearly.
Oh, okay.
Just the swamp gas, guys.
Just spiritual
just
stuff.
Swamp gas. Oh yeah, it could just be opium or something like that.
I was
wafting in the.
It's definitely the spiritual mysticism.
Everybody
of the swamp,
was just stoned the whole episode.
Yeah. Right. That's what that gas does.
I like how
Sokka. That would actually explain the band. Like if they did just come out of the swamp, and they're like, "Whoa, it's the Avatar." Yeah.
Sacred tunnel. But yeah, I love the moment with the leech, because they've raised like, why does everything keep getting stuck on me? And it's like literally everything in this show is attracted to Sokka. Like everything is attracted to Sokka.
It was funny to me as well. I was like, I wonder if that was like an improvised thing, like where they just said, we don't have a funny way to end this exchange. What do we do? And they go like, why is everything doing like let's just call ourselves out. Sokka has bad luck.
Yeah.
I also like the fact that it's called like an elbow leech. He's like, where?
Where do you think?
Where do you think? Yeah, that was funny.
Your elbow.
Also, the thing was like massive. It's
Wait,
like,
it's
if
terrifying.
you guys think about it, it can also be known as a weenus leech.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah, but
That's not a
Yeah,
thing
but-
here, or if it is, I've not encountered it. So that term.
Well, it's only if like you have adequate size for it to be described as having one. But anyway,
I've been
move on.
kidnapped. Where have I been taken here? The screeching bird is hilarious. I love that moment where it's like, there's absolutely nothing weird about that, and just
Yeah,
they
it's
hear the
like
scream.
it's funny because aside from the scream, that is like the most normal animal that's ever been on the show.
Yeah.
It's just a bird.
Yeah, it's funny. Soccer talking to the swamp. It's like, no, it's fine. I asked the swamp. It said it's fine. It just keeps cutting.
Yeah,
at
he
it.
was really being like out of his way to not be respectful at this point. Like where he was just like tearing the swamp and like it's cool. Like who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Even though this weird, ominous stuff is happening, I'm just gonna ignore that.
But they search for Appa and Momo until they eventually night falls and they have to make camp. They stay the night. This is where we have the Appa roaring moment. And then it's they get separated. The swamp seemingly intentionally separates them with the vines to send them on their own little spiritual journeys, small scale. This is where the swamp people get introduced, and the swamp thing lingers in the background as well. But we'll cover that when we get to that last section. It's mostly about the little spirit journeys.
Yeah, I like the design of Katara's mom. We just get the back of her head, but I think it's distinct enough that it's not Katara, but she's related. And also they make her look relatively young too. I'm not sure. She did die.
It's how she remembers her.
Right.
Well, she would have been pretty young, wouldn't she? Because her children were both young. Like Sokka was like, I don't know, not 10 yet. It doesn't seem like.
Right.
And Katara was little. And we do eventually see what I think her name was. Is her name Kaya too? What is her name? I think she has a name. I think she's given a name by like their dad or something at some point afterward, but I can't remember.
I feel like it's Kaya. Yeah.
But in any case, we do eventually see what she looks like in the flashback sequence from like Southern Raiders, where we see how she's taken out. But yeah, it is a nice bit of just like a stand-in, for that up to that point. It is clear to us who that's supposed to be, even without seeing the face. That's pretty artfully done.
Yeah, it could have been just a cardboard cutout, and it wasn't. They added a little bit more detail. They gave it just enough definition to be instantly recognizable. I mean, if nothing else, for the fact that Katara is the one seeing her. But yeah, it was in just the angle of the shot as well, where it's slanted just slightly to the side, and as she looks at her, it was really well done. I enjoyed that, and her reaction as well when she turns and sees the stump. The immediate, tears were really powerful for me, and the zoom out shot as well. It captured that moment very effectively, without overdoing it, because that could have been really overplayed if they tried to put too much time on it or something.
It's also nice to keep that seed planted, or like in our mind, that like, yeah, Katara's mom is like a thing, like, because it doesn't really become relevant until all the way in season 3, but it is like a big part of her character arc overall. So it's nice to have that through line, because we've already had the necklace thing, and now we see that she does constantly dwell on this still. Yeah,
it needs to be reiterated, as with the war and the suffering it caused. That keeps coming up throughout the show. It's definitely something that needs to be there, and they do it just enough for me. Very effective.
I don't have the same thing with Sokka and Yue's moment, though. It just was more of him just freaking out about like ghostly figure, but I didn't feel like there was as much of an impact.
Yeah,
the relationship had no impact in general.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't like. I expect that, I guess, because I do kind of continually forget that they were a thing, because that relationship just isn't the point of the show for me, I guess. But it's like I sometimes forget that his girlfriend is literally the moon. But yeah, so yeah, I don't feel much either. But and I don't revisit this episode much. Like, do you guys? Like in general?
No, definitely not.
Like,
it's definitely one of the least viewed ones for me. It's not a bad episode. It's just it's for me. It's kind of boring in the fact that not much happens. Considering how jam packed so many of these episodes, especially the ones to come after this, are. This one's kind of a slow, kind of lingering, just a gentle paced one, which is perfectly fine and well placed in the series actually. But it's not going to draw you back every 5 seconds like the others are.
I actually mentioned last night to Antoine when I was asking about Breaking Bad, like with that Fly episode, not to go on like a tangent, but it is like I can like a boring episode where nothing happens except for character development and stuff. But there's just not much going on in this episode. So it's like I'm not like instantly bored and turned off by episodes like this where not much happens aside from like introspective stuff. I like that.
Some of that is my favorite stuff.
Yeah, this stuff just doesn't have a lot going on for me.
There's no real
yeah.
character development or or establishment here. It's just little bits of future seeds placed,
Yeah.
the mysticism of the swamp explored, and
It's more just reminders and
Yeah.
like piecemeal than it is anything
Which
like challenging them.
and when you think about it, that kind of fits because it's looking on the past, looking on the present, and it's looking on the future. That's the whole shtick of the swamp. So it makes sense that the episode has that kind of steady pace and is highlighting those as the primary kind of focuses. But at the same time, it just doesn't make for massively compelling, viewership, in my opinion.
Right.
Right.
And then moving
Aang,
on, we
of course,
get
is
Aang
introduced.
sees
to
Toph, but doesn't know it's
Right.
Toph.
And it's nice because we don't know who, assuming it's your first time watching it, like that is a good sort of mystery. Like, what is that? Where are we going with this? Because if you don't know who Toph is going into this, that's a nice little breadcrumb that's been dropped for us.
When pigs fly. I love the symbol of her family as well being present. It was a nice little touch added on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is that like their crest? Is
I
it a
think it
pig?
is. Yeah, I think it's based
Yeah,
on
it's
crest.
a pig hippogriff looking thing.
Oh, okay. I didn't even realize that. But
It's only there, I think, the first time we see. I don't think it continues on. It's just the first time you see her.
That's why I like
Yeah,
these
it's their crest.
discussions.
Yeah,
because
that's,
that's something that just would not have occurred to me. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. I like that little added touch. But yeah,
I
well,
like the
that's
river
summation of them a little
people's the way they row their boats, like
Yes.
the waterbenders that are. It's like the perfect motion. It's like you're swimming, but you're just not, and you're pushing out. It's like great. That's a great little thing to do.
little practical use. Yeah, the episode itself, we'll get to it when we cover the actual scene that comes up, but the episode's bending is some of the best we've seen thus far. In terms of
I
the
think the fight's
creative
really cool.
uses, in terms of the storyboarding of the action, the different effects they can do with the combinations, everything was really, really well done here. I'd forgotten how exciting the battle was. But to be fair, it makes sense that it is in this episode because there wasn't much budget-wise going on. It was a lot of stills, panning shots. That in terms of the animation, they had a lot more to work with because they weren't spending it on the more minor elements.
Yep, I agree. Are we there yet, or there's stuff before that? I guess they meet.
I mean,
Yeah, they
all
meet back
meet
up.
again
They meet
and
back
they see
up.
the big tree.
Sorta.
Which, by the way, is it the same swamp that Toph ends up residing in
Almost
later?
certainly. I don't think it's
Oh,
confirmed.
Right,
That's
yeah,
what
I
I
think
would
so,
assume
right?
But
so.
almost
There's
certainly.
the
Yeah,
same
I would-
concept of her being able to see like everything, and it
Yeah, I would
seems like
just-
it's because she's using the swamp tree to see everything.
Yeah, I just would have assumed that that's the case. Yeah, I don't know that they actually say that. Like, I once came here, like, with my friends or whatever. Or
Well, which she
she's
never
not
did.
here.
Which she
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah, she's not actually here, so yeah, she wouldn't say that. But I guess it makes sense that you.
But
just
she's
wind
pretty
up
close because the next two episodes when we get introduced to her, so like she can't be too far away from this location.
And
Because
she's
wherever-
exactly
I don't even
the
know
kind
her
of-
name, Burkina.
And she's exactly the kind of person who, outside of the Avatar, would be drawn to this sort of spiritual place as well, as the most
Right.
powerful and connected Earthbender to the world. So it
Mhm.
makes sense. But yeah,
I feel like it's one of those pockets of areas like that. You know how like these southern and northern tips have those
Oh, the
portals,
harmonic
convergence.
convergence
Yeah.
thing. With the,
I'm
the-
sure
the
like
head
every
portals.
nation has like vergence areas like where like they're sort of within like the spirit realm or like they're affected by it. So this would seem to be I'm sure like the firebending masters area like with the
Oh.
dragons. I'm sure that has stuff in the Fire Nation for them.
Right.
oh, very cool. This
That's
is the sort of stuff that I
really
hope gets
good,
explored
yeah.
in the future if they do tell more stories. Which we should probably mention the whole Avatar Kyoshi novels that have been announced. Worth talking about
Oh,
at some point.
yeah.
We'll definitely have to cover those when they come out. I really hope they're good.
Right.
Well, then they're not due out until 2019 sometime.
So
but
we
yeah.
got times. We got
Yeah.
times.
Looking forward to it. Fingers crossed, guys.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, the gang regather and they meet up and they discuss the different moments they've had. Sokka is again trying to rationalize everything away because he doesn't want to believe it. Again, it's supernatural. He's out of his control. Katara's kind of wants to believe because then it's more of a connection to her mother that she gets rather than just this abstract sense of memory she has. And Aang, just puzzled by the fact that who is this girl? I haven't seen this person before, and it's basically just laying the foundation for the exploration of the swamp's kind of mysticism that we get at the end of the episode, where it is revealed that this is about the past, present, and future, the connection of the world to, or the connection of the swamp to the world around it.
Mm-hmm.
But now we
Yeah.
have the fight because this is the moment when the swamp thing arrives.
The first thing I want to say about the fight, which you guys can jump in anytime, but the one thing that I absolutely did not remember about this episode that I really liked the music. I thought that was
Yes.
thrilling and like sort of pumped up music and like that sort of like string instrument that sort of boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Like, it reminded me actually, Callan, of like lots of Justice League fights
Yes,
in a way.
I had the same thought.
It was really, really good. battle music, which normally I look to Korra for that, not Atla, but I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, there's Adler again. I've never heard that said out loud before. Besides the
Yeah, I
episode,
know.
yeah, it's cool. But yeah, the music was stood out to me. I meant to mention it at the start of the episode actually, because it's when Aang's getting pulled into the swamp. That's the first time I noticed it. I thought, oh, that's really unique. You know, it's one of those episodes where it has its own kind of mini score. It's not really used very often later in the show. So you know that it's got that going for it. The episode as a whole, and like you said, this battle music is very engaging, very nuanced and tied to what's going on screen, which you know it tends to do that in general, but this is definitely a standout moment for it. And the animation as well, the vines twisting round, it's so much detail in there.
Yeah, I also liked that one shot that sort of like panned around Katara while she was like not letting them touch her. Like it was like a nice sort of it's reminiscent of like when they're doing their training sequence against Melon Lord, like later on, where like the camera sort of pans around what she's doing. I thought they clearly spent a lot of time on that moment. It was really nice and fluid.
Yeah,
It wasn't the coolest bending she's ever done, but it was just rendered extremely well.
Yeah, the camera work in general for this fight was really good. Like when Katara gets thrown back and Aang's turning to see her before getting hit himself, the kind of impact of the motion of the impact kind of carries with the camera. It's very effective. But the most important thing for me though is the bending itself. They do so many creative little motions with this one. The dynamic range of movement from the characters, the actual abilities they're kind of firing at the vines, the way they're kind of thinking about how they can take this creature out once they work out different parts of how it works. The scale of Aang's airbending, because he's doing the big tornado moves, which he's done more in this episode than we've seen thus far. Even at the start of the episode with the sphere, we didn't mention that when he tries to block the tornado with the sphere. That was so cool. He doesn't usually use these large scale abilities.
My favorite thing.
You know what I would like though? What was your favorite thing?
Yeah, her blade thing.
Yeah,
where she just kept firing.
Okay, good. 'Cause that's what I want to talk about too.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Because I would like to see a version of Avatar, which kind of almost did it with Legend of Korra, but even like more adult than that. Like the Power Rangers thing they did, that fan film they made where it was like completely adult Power Rangers, like there was cursing and blood and stuff like that. I would like to see what that would look like with an actual fight, because her blades look pretty sharp. Aang has cut through a few things with his air, but no one ever gets cut or injured in that way. And I would love to see like a fight where that kind of stuff actually does happen, because this guy could have easily been sliced in half if they didn't know, there was a dude in there. You know what I mean? Like,
I had the same thought when he was fighting Azula in the previous episode, when he sliced down the wooden barricades. Like about 6 or 7 of those go straight through, and that's just air. So yeah, he can make air blades that can slice people in half, guys. It's
right, because wood is similar to the consistency of bone, correct? Or am I crazy about that? It's bone stronger than wood.
Well, regardless, it's definitely enough to cut through bone, because he's done it with stronger things than just those wooden planks.
He has done stuff like this before. It's just the only thing he ever consciously kills is one of those bee wasp things that steals Momo, and he kills it. I don't know if people realize that, but
I don't remember that. That's in book 3, right?
No, it's this book. It's in the desert.
It's after Appa's lost, and he goes, "I'm not losing anyone else." Like when one of those wasps takes Momo, he can't catch up to it, so he makes a blade of like air, and you actually see the things.
Wow!
So he killed that thing, which is not a monk-like thing to do. But so Aang is a murderer.
Yeah, but he's very much falling down that dark path at that moment.
But what you're saying. What you're saying, like that's the kind of fan theories that people used to have, and they instantly, which is natural to do in a way, they instantly went like the darkest, like with all the implications of what you could do with water, because we're made of it. You know what I mean? So like, and that they were doing this before the Puppet Master was a thing. And that was what was so thrilling about that episode for me, was that they went there. They started talking about what you can kind of do, even though the show puts limitations because Nickelodeon. There's only so much they can do with it. But they opened the door to a lot of that and made it, this exists in our world, basically, with the Puppet Master. I enjoyed that a lot. But we'll get to that in season 3.
There's just a lot of creativity going on here, and different uses. Like even just the vine manipulation, that idea is really cool and creative, and the way it kind of moves around, and his just literally bending.
It's
the
almost
fluid
in a way, it's like blood bending, but you're blood bending plants.
Yeah, it's exactly the same.
You're just manipulating the water.
Yeah,
it's the same mentality.
But yeah, it's just
that guy would
really
have
cool.
a very easy crossover if he ever did like get introduced to Hama or Katara or ever, like, you know.
As long as you're powerful enough, the only hurdle is whether or not you're willing to do something that to somebody. Yeah.
And it was always the eeriness of it by itself. That the idea that you're literally forcing the blood to move one direction, so it forces, but the pain of it kind of forces the arm and the muscle and everything. It's like, oh, not fun.
The way they animate that stuff too.
Yeah,
man.
the creaking is the worst. Ugh. Anyway,
Right.
we're way off topic on that one. Sorry, that's my bad. But yeah, you get the fight. The conclusion of it is ultimately that they find out that the vine creature is being controlled by what's his name? Hugh.
It's the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, they gave Sokka nothing to do in the actual fight, so he's the one that realized, hey, there's a guy in there. So like that was his contribution this time.
Yeah, and they speak to him, and then he leads them to the tree. What's it called? The great. I can't remember the name.
I don't know.
The
The Tree of Life.
The Banyan Grove.
Basically.
The Banyan Grove tree. That was it. And they.
Oh, it had a name?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't
the
even
Great
okay.
Banyan Grove tree. Yeah, and they go to learn the spirituality of it, basically. And I like a lot of it's kind of generic mysticism stuff, but there are a few lines that specifically tie the swamp and the core of the swamp with the tree to the world, and the idea of bending, which I really like. You know, the we are all branches of the same tree. You know, the root,
Right.
our roots are the same. You know, if you listen hard enough, it wasn't just generic. Oh, if you listen to the world, everything breathes. There was that, but there was a little bit more depth to it.
Yeah,
which I liked.
there's nothing wrong with it. It's just like I don't know. I'm not even sure like why this episode was like why that message was considered necessary at this time. Like it just sort of seems a little bit.
Yeah, what
Like-
was being challenged where they needed to know that everything's
Yeah.
Yeah.
connected? Because there
You
was
know what I mean?
no...
There's nothing wrong with it, but it is sort of out of nowhere.
Yeah,
kind of off to the. It's off to the side.
Yeah.
It's very off to the side for me.
Right.
The entire episode, yeah, and the message itself, it's just there was no need to learn it at this moment, as Antoine says, and there was no real impact. You know, there's nothing that lasts throughout this other than the fact that they remember that Toph has been seen before. That there's nothing that carries
Yeah.
on into future episodes, even affecting
Even-
Aang's spirituality. Although I do like that when he says, you know, I get that the swamp's connected, I understand that, but the world, really? That was the kind of lesson he'd learned, that everything is completely connected at its roots, at its core.
It's just. I guess Aang is the kind of person I think of as already having that kind of philosophy, being an air nomad and the Avatar. So it's like it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It just is like sort of
There's this oomph
ancillary
behind
for
it.
me.
Yeah.
It's like if you think about like the fortune teller, which is kind of like not really an important episode in one sense, but that idea that even, and again, all debate aside, but just like the idea that like Wu's trying to impart the idea to Aang that like you can kind of forge your own destiny, which for him was something he kind of needed to hear at that moment. You know, like this isn't really something I feel like Aang needs to hear at this moment, but it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Not every episode needs to be a spiritual hammer blow as well, so it's nice to have that slow pace in between. And it's definitely not filler because you know it's doing the job with the story of introducing Toph and such.
And is he just some guy like they just came here for enlightenment? Is that the idea?
Yeah, I think
like,
so.
He's
Yeah,
not really.
he achieved enlightenment at the base of the tree and decided to stay. Is the idea I got.
That's fine. I just was trying to make sure I didn't miss out on like some kind of important detail of how he got here. He's just some
secretly
dude
an
that
ex-Fire Nation general.
he would be like the Foggy Swamp tribeman like representative in the White Lotus though. I feel like
yeah, definitely. Yeah,
if they needed one.
and you know he turns up at the battle at the end as well. Of course, these guys come
That is
back,
true.
which is worth noting.
Or does he come at the end, or is it in the like?
Oh, the
Like
first
Sun,
attack. Yeah,
I
when they all basically
yeah.
strike up. Yeah, when the battle is actually happening, he's one of the people there. The number of them are.
Which makes sense because he's a very capable bender, even though like his style is sort of just like he just does that, like manipulates vines, but just the basically he functions as a kind of tank, like literally.
He's a siege engine in that. I mean, you know, the amount of vines he brings to that battle, it's a huge target. He's literally tanking up the damage for them as they move ahead. Very cool. And yeah, it's another person they met along the way that they kind of not recruited, but they earned the allegiance of to an extent, which is nice.
Yeah,
it shows that the Avatar's journey has more to bring than just the spiritual growth and the elemental learning. It's uniting the world. Very cool. But that's kind of the end of their story. They meet up with the people that have captured Momo and Appa, and they discuss.
Katara is disgusted when she's like, we kin, and she's like, ugh. No, yeah.
That's sort of a snobby moment. Remember how you guys called her a little snobby like before?
Yeah.
But I think I'm on her level with that one. I can see why she. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of funny too when they mention like, oh yeah, we know waterbenders are at the pole, and they describe it. Oh yeah, it's ice and cold. And they're like, oh no wonder you guys left. Like I thought that was pretty funny too.
And then Sokka as well is still hanging in there. Well, no accounting for weather. You know, he won't accept the spirituality, even though he does know.
He's really sort of a fool in this episode.
Yeah,
for me.
He's just hammering it on. It's like, come on, it's not real. It's not real.
Especially when he saw Yue twice. And
like why would you think that he just hallucinated that? Like, that is like, didn't she kind of have a conversation with him a little bit? Like, I'm cool.
Yeah,
she basically said, what, you didn't save me. You know, how could you let me die? And it was his tortured mind, or it's supposed to be him torturing himself. But it's just it's. Again, it's one of those. It's like the Iroh thing. He clearly has to know this is real. It has to be basically in denial rather than outright not recognizing reality. But they don't really frame that properly. It isn't shown on screen and carried out as well as it should be. You know, Iroh had to have been being sarcastic at the start, but there's nothing there actually stating that for you, objectively.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit.
And I guess that, it is sort of like just. They sort of go through the motions of like what the scene demands, like sort of like at the expense of, okay, what is this character's actual philosophical take on what just happened? It's a little tough to tell. They sort of blur that line. But that sort of brings us back to like that bookend, which we sort of already talked about, but it's the reemergence of the blue spirit.
Yes. Which was he carrying that mask around with him, or what?
Yeah, that does tend to materialize.
It's found in a different one. Like I felt like the whole costume was. I feel like the whole costume was just sort of a makeshift thing in the first place. So he just found
like, oh, there's a ceremonial mask. I'm gonna grab that.
Yeah. I suppose he could have made it, but it doesn't seem like a Zuko thing to do to craft something like that.
The idea of him sitting down with Smarts and Crafts, and and there's a tusk, and there's the little top white bit. Yeah, that's just weird. Him doing pottery or something like that, bizarre. But yeah, it was a cool moment though. I liked it was like the return of the blue spirit without hamming it up or anything. It was and the idea that he's got to be going into the vigilante mode, but he needs to.
I just realized like. It's another shame on you. This is the second time he's ended an episode stealing something, but it's okay in this case because this guy was a douche.
Yeah,
so, But that's right. This becomes a. Oh, I hate your Gollum impression. It's too good.
Sorry.
I just realized like I forgot about this, but he does start doing that, just jacking people's stuff. That's like a subplot in one of these episodes. Maybe the next one. I'm not sure.
I feel like it makes sense for Zuko. If you're down and out like that. I think he would turn to that because he has the ability to.
Yeah, and as far as he sees it, he needs to do it. Therefore, it's fine.
Yeah, I think there's a point to it where like Iroh lectures him about this, so it goes somewhere. It's not just like a thing for no reason. I think there is a point to this.
I mean, that's been introduced already with the stealing of the chocobo. When he's saying these people have been very kind to us. Don't just.
By the way, where the hell was that?
That was resting behind them. They were leaning against it.
Yeah, it was resting behind them when they were doing the dance.
Okay.
Yeah. They were leaning against it.
Okay, I stand corrected. All right, good. Okay.
So I was looking for that as well. I thought at the same time.
I was like, they're just bumming around now. Like, what happened to that thing? Yeah, because I was gonna go and teleport it away because I know he has it in Zuko alone for sure. He also has it. I think that's what he rides in on in the chase. Was like he just shows up on that thing.
Yeah, it's him. He takes away that thing quite a lot. I love the chase. Can't wait to get to the chase. One of my favorite episodes of all time.
We're almost there.
I know.
We're almost
so
there. We only have.
But yeah, that wraps up this one. It was a pretty easy one. This one to cover. If anyone has any thoughts they think we've missed or they want to cover in greater depth, post them in the comments down below. Hope you've enjoyed, and I'm Ready For, and I still don't have an outro.
And I'm GrayJedi91, and I'm a little surprised we talked about this episode as long as we did.
Antoine Bandelay, peace, love, and be water, my friends.
Goodbye.